Hi everybody, and welcome to my next edition of Match Memories. The last one that I did on the Division 1 National on the Gloucester Canal had so many nice comments. So again, I know I start all these like this, but thank you all very much. I really enjoy going over these matches. And I just hope that you enjoy watching the Match Memories as much as I do enjoy doing them. So today, again, a little bit different. It's an international match back in 2013 with a little bit of a twist. It's the 2013 Fishermania International Challenge. Now, the 2 years previous, it was teams of 4, and it was basically England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales. This year, however, there were some teams from Europe. So it was England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland. Then Hungary, Holland, France, Germany. I've got them written down here. Yeah, France, Holland, Hungary, Germany. So there was 8 teams. Now, a little bit different. You couldn't actually practice. So, that obviously made it hard. In years gone past, we've been able to practice. All we could really do was go and watch a few matches, and that was it. And also what had changed this year, it had gone from a teams of 4 to a pairs match. Obviously, Mark Downs, Mark Addy, being the 2 England managers, they decided to pick me and Alan for this. And there's not many people, I think, that can argue with that pairing. Again, like if I've ever got a fish, a pairs match, who else, everyone in the England team, is a worthy partner. But obviously, Alan, in the big match experience with the matches that he's won and that at the time, there was nobody better really. So the draw, came around. Obviously, we'd watched some matches there, got a bit of information that there were these big fish, and obviously what we could do is watch the actual Fishermania final the day before, which is on the Saturday. The international one is on the Sunday. Now, there was a few fish caught shallow. Not loads, but some big fish as well. There weren't many fish caught in the edge, which was quite surprising. But what quite often happens, because on the Friday, there's not a lot of bait goes in, there's no fishing. Saturday tends to be a bit slow, and then Sunday tends to be good because there's bait obviously gone in on the Saturday. Now, as I've said all the way through these match memories, we weren't able to practice, but there's things you can take on board and there's things to look for. On one particular match, I think it was on the Wednesday before there was like a club match, and I literally just drove up there, I put so much effort into my fishing, and just driving up to Cudmore, which is, over 150 miles from me, just to watch an afternoon match. That's the sort of effort and lengths and that I will go to. And believe me, it paid off. So I ended up watching this match, just sat at the top of the bank, keeping myself to myself, and everyone's catching a few fish down the edge and on the top 5. And there was this one guy who was, everyone was hooking them, losing on ones, foul looking them, spooking them. Other guys were fishing really close to the bank, not really catching. People fishing out. But there was this one guy sat on about peg 9 or 10. And it was so obvious that everyone he hooked was in the mouth. Didn't spook them. Got plenty of bites. And he actually won the match. And I wandered down to him afterwards and I said, is there any chance, I can have a look at your rig? And he's like, oh, I can't believe it. Like you want to look at your rig. But I didn't. Yes, okay, I wanted to look at his rig, but it wasn't the hook, it wasn't the line, it wasn't the float, it wasn't the elastic. I wasn't interested in any of that. I was interested in the depth that he fished. And I can remember I had my Gore-Texy type Darwa trousers on, and I held it against my leg, stood up, and I just scratched a little white mark in my trousers like that. Went back to the van. I've got all my gear in there, literally got my tape measure out, measured it. 28.5 inches was the depth. Now, if you just bear with me, and I know I refer to this book quite a bit, Cudmore Fisho 2013, page 33. So 28.5 inches, and you can see that written down there quite plainly, 28.5 inches, and these are all the notes that were made during practice and after the match. So again, what I want to incorporate in all these talks is you know, things that I've learned to look for, things that I've learned to, you know, take on board. And this depth thing on commercials is massive. It's absolutely massive. It can just mean the difference between, you know, catching loads, not having a bit of a nightmare with losing fish and fish bow waving off and spooking, to having exactly that if you're fishing the wrong depth. So the right depth, you know, if you ever go fishing and someone's catching a load, just try and see what depth they're fishing. If you ever have a real good day and think, hang on a minute, didn't spook any, didn't foul look any, you know, everyone I hooked was plumbing the gob, you know, they were happy there, take a note of the depth. Put a tape measure. I think I've got all my tape measures now in my box and that. Got them dotted around in various places, but I know there's one in my box, because if I ever have one of those days where it just seems perfect, I always measure the depth. Different venues, different depths. Different size fish, different depths. But those big carp, 28.5 inches, really did seem to be the depth on Cudmore Arena Lake. So we go into the match. Now a little bit different, as in you get your peg draw. I think we had peg 3 and 11. And 11 was obviously, you really wanted to be like 5 to 9 really, but out of 11 and 3, 11 did seem the better peg. And I think the management, with Alan's experience, and also Alan, you've got to realise that very, very good with the waggler. Not too bad myself, but Alan very, very good. Accuracy is unbelievable, and I think the management thought that peg 3, it could be a bit of a waggler, fishing for small skimmers and an odd carp late on. And obviously with my pedigree with the carp, I think they decided to put me a bit nearer where, you know, the bulk of carp were. So that's what happened. Alan was on 3, I was on 11. Really fancied it. It was Les Thompson, I think, on it the day before, and he actually hooked one late down the edge, and I was there watching, thinking, God, put a load of bait in ready for me tomorrow. But yeah, he only hooked one, but there weren't many. But you know, being experienced, see, come all the way back to Gold Valley. It's literally just over the back of me here now. I'm in my tack room in my back garden. You get a Saturday and a Sunday match on the same pegs on the same lake. The Saturday one, if it's not really been fished on the Friday, will be quite slow. The Sunday one, you know, the fish are just ravenous, you know, like they want to eat, they're angry, they're up for it, and there's always a bigger weight. And it's the same on a lot of these commercials. You know, the second day after a day of bait, the fish are really up for it. They want to feed. You know, they're feeding aggressive, and the weights go up and up and up. And fish can turn up in areas where the day before there was none. So anyway, basically, we had a couple of waggler rods made up. We had 2 or 3 rigs from the bottom, 13 metre pole limit. So again, 2 or 3 rigs from the bottom, fishing with worms. You're allowed to cup. Now, in the sort of 2 years previous, there'd been a lot of small fish, a lot of eyed, a lot of skimmers, a lot of roach, and odd carp, odd barbel, bits and bobs. But it's quite apparent that there was a lot less of these fish. Now, we had 4 basic attacks. So you've got the waggler if everything's gone wrong and you need to go over there. We just fired a few little balls across, just puffing in about 5 metres off the far bank. You could catch these little hand-sized skimmers, just about lift them in. But that was really like a last sort of resort, really. So your 3 main lines. Now we've got this 28.5 inches, which we plumb up top 6. Literally, I made my rigs up here, right where I'm stood. Made them 28.5 inches, 10 inches of line above it. Tied the loop, the hook, because that's the only depth I was going to fish in. I was sold that that's the depth I'm going to fish in. And literally what you do, the bank's like this, you drop your rig in and just plumb up until you find that exact depth. Top 6, bearing in mind you've got a spare peg one side of you, so it's 2 miss 1, 2 miss 1 in the international. So the side of you where you know, there isn't anyone, that's the side you fish, top 6. And I remember I plumbed up, and it was right on the edge of this match room sign, and I plumbed that. I thought, perfect. So that's my first line. My second pole line, now Cudmore, it's like a donut shape, and as you go out, say top 7, top 8, the bottom goes from quite hard to soft. Now, that can be a fantastic place to fish, and in the 2 years previous, that's where we'd fish, just kinder potting little bits of worms, fishing red worms on the hook, single caster, little tiny pea-sized bit of a dendron, and we caught all these weird and wonderful different fish. Absolutely fantastic fishing, but the lake did seem to have changed. So we had small floats like shanty type floats, 011 and a 16 hook, yellow hydro for this line. But that was the line that was in doubt. We just weren't sure because there was not really any of these fish caught. The next line was at, like I say, 13 metres, either potting in worms and casters, fishing for odd big bream and odd carp, or fishing shallow. There'd been some fish caught shallow the day before. Loose feeding casters, maybe even potting in a little bit of worm slop, you know, like the soil that the worms come in, just to create that bit of a dark cloud. So anyway, it was really a case of, you know, it's a high pressure event. You've got the TV cameras, you've got massive crowds, you know, you really are in the spotlight. And out of all the matches I've fished, you know, world champs, European champs, Six Nations, this and this, I think that's the most intense environment I've been in as far as fishing's concerned. But one that I would never swap for the world. I absolutely thrive on that sort of thing and love it to pieces. So anyway, excuse me, going into the match, our plan was always to start on this 7-8 metre line and just see if these fish are here, just potting in little tiny blobs in a pot, chop worm casters, little bit of fish meal ground bait, and go from there really. You know, it's just see what other people did. You got 5 hours, bearing in mind, we got the runners, you know, Callum had come up to run, Des was about, obviously you got the 2 marks on the bank. Now, you know, you're fishing for £10,000, which went towards the other teams. There's also £1,000 for the biggest fish. So, you know, if you could get it right, £11,000 was on offer, which went towards the other teams. We got a little bit like for our expenses, but not a lot at all. The bulk of the money if we did win. So, you know, there's not any pressure for, you know, yourself and your pride and everything, but you wanted to try and win this money to help the other teams along their way as far as the international fishing's concerned. So anyway, the match started, and again, you know, my memory for a lot of things isn't too good, but where fishing's concerned, there's not a lot I forget at all, and I can literally shut my eyes and relive the match. And again, this is no different. Looking back, I remember I started and I was looking round and I was like, blimey, you know, like, where's all the fish? And I remember then Lee Edwards next to Alan hooked a carp shallow, and it's like, whoa, hang on a minute, you know, right, patience, you've got 5 hours, just, you know, you've got 2 of the most experienced anglers, if not managers, behind you in Mark Addy and Mark Downs. You know, they're not going to let anything slip, they're not going to let anything go under the radar without telling you. Just relax. And I caught a couple of roach and caught a skimmer. It just wasn't happening. And I was next to Darren Frost, and then he hooked a carp shallow. And literally after about half hour, it was like, right, change of plan. And this is what, if you want to compete at the top, you have to be able to do. You have to be able to drop your plans, completely clear your mind, and go down another road. And that's what you have to do. And that's what I had to do on this particular day. Started loose feeding casters, potting in a little bit of slop, which I wasn't convinced, loose feeding casters, and fishing about an inch piece of a dendrobina. Flicking your rig over. I was using a Darwa Carper cube float. Perfect for that style of fishing. Casey Carper cube it was back then. Brilliant float for this. 018 main line, 014 hook length, and a 14 hook. Bearing in mind you're not allowed a hair rig in internationals. Very important to remember that. So you've got to hook the bait. And I can remember I went out there, started loose feeding, trying to attack it, be aggressive. And the thing is with pole limits, it's fantastic in some instances, but you know, I've always been an angler to look for an advantage. I want to fish further. I want to fish more accurate. I want to fish, Distance is a major advantage, whether you're fishing a pole, a feeder, a waggler. If you can go further and be on your own, 9 times out of 10 it's a massive advantage. Now obviously on the Donut Lake, Arena Lake at Cudmore, 13 metre limit, your poles are measured, you can't have it, a millimetre over. There's no real advantage, so the one advantage was to be aggressive. We're not there to come second, third, fourth, we're there to win. And I can remember I started 2 pouching every time, and I mean adrenaline catapult, full pouch, whoosh, whoosh. And all of a sudden I flicked my rig over, and again I can remember it. Because I remember in the match trying to recreate it. When you flick your rig over and it lands next to your pole, for some reason I flicked it over and it actually went out, and it landed, and as the float went under and I went to pick up, the elastic was out, my white hydro was out, big boil on the surface, and off this carp went, and I was, oh, please don't come off. It's like, almost shutting your eyes or biting your tongue thinking, please, please. Anyway, cut a long story short, managed to get it in. It was a nice carp, about 6.5, 7 pound, and I was on my way. By this time, Alan, I think, had caught a couple of fish. I think he caught a decent bream. But it seemed like Alan was right on the edge of the fish. And again, I remember it like yesterday. There was a wind coming in towards me, which I'm thinking, hang on a minute, this could be absolutely perfect, Remember, went back out, 2 big pouchfuls of casters, boom, hooked another one, another big bow wave, and another one bow. And you start thinking, little signs like that, you start thinking to yourself, hang on a minute, there's 1 or 2 fish here. Now, all the time I had it in mind that after 2.5 hours, I want to start feeding this edge line on a regular basis. And I'm a massive fan when it comes to margin fishing. To prepare it, feed it. And even when you can see them there, don't go there. Go there when I see people do it all the time. They put a bit of bait in, they see a swell, they drop it in, they hook one, and then everything's gone. You want to feed it and get them, let them get at home, let them get their feet under the table, let them get happy, so that when you do hook one and they spook, they come back because they know where the bait is. And I remember after about 2.5 hours, 2 big potfuls of ground bait, some dead maggots, some casters, right in line with this marker. I can see this post sticking up, right in line. Boom, 2 big potfuls. Right, I'm set. Went back out, and I think I caught 6 or 7 carp shallow, and I was right up there. I think Alan had caught a carp by this time, and it was so important to keep your cool. And it came round, it's about 2 hours to go, and I've been feeding this in. And to cut a long story short, we were, I think, about 20 kilos behind with 2 hours to go. Now, that does sound a lot, 20 kilo, 41, 42 pound, whatever it is. But in a lake like Cudmore, where there's the quality of fish and the big fish, it's basically 4 or 5 bites. Now, obviously, we at this point we were concerned. The management were coming round, and I think it was Jamie Mason and David Cochran catching well. They were 20 kilos ahead, and it did start to look a little bit. But I'd caught a few shallow. By this time, Alan had caught 1 shallow, so he'd had a couple of carp and a bream, and he caught a few fish on a waggler. And it came round about 1.5 hours to go, and I dropped it in the air. I actually fed it first. Remember, a ball of ground bait, 100 casters, a few dead maggots, dropped it in, dropped my float in, and I thought, right, and the wind's perfect. It's coming in, and there's still an old one bow waving around. It's just gone, like, bonk. So, I can't believe it. I've got one. Got that in, about 8 pound, put it in the net, gone in again, nothing, shipped in quickly, fed it again, ball of ground bait, 100 casters, few dead maggots, dropped it in. It's like, oh, boom, woo, woo, and there's a big, and they're bow waving off, and I'm thinking, blimey, there's more than 1 or 2 in, but it's because I'd fed it. And I remember when I put those first 2 cupfuls in, I'd seen them there. Seemed like a bow wave and a bit of a rock on the, you don't, and this is another thing that I want to touch on. It's when you're looking for signs of fish, obviously people think bubbles, people think swells, that's it. But there's other signs of fish. You get that like little rock on the water where you think, oh, hang on a minute, you know, like there's no swirls, there's no bubbles, but there's just that, you know, little bit of a movement, like something big under the water's just sort of rocked around or just, you know, spooked off. And there was all this going on, and I couldn't wait to get down there. And think, by this time Alan had gone down the edge and he caught 2 or 3. Again, you know, like, and all of a sudden you could feel not only, you know, our sort of spirits are lifted, but everyone else is like, oh, hang on a minute, you know, like Alan's got one on, Will's got one on, oh, Will's just got another, and it's the same in a lot of sports. You know, I've played, you know, pool at a reasonably high level. I've got friends that play darts at high levels. And it's all about getting your competitors worried. And if you can do that, you know, and likewise, it's about you not getting worried about your competitors. So there's a lot of things to control, you know, in this top flight match fishing. But one of my best memories in fishing, and it's testimony to what I stand by, and that is strength and reliability in your tackle. So important in these big matches. I remember Stevie saying to me years ago, in these big matches, you're better off not hooking a fish than hooking it and losing it. So always fish heavier. Always be ultra, you know, vigilant, and your gear's right. You know, your elastic's new, your rigs are fresh, your hooks are well, and you know, Stevie really taught me the importance of capitalising on an opportunity. And that's what me and Alan did this day. I ended up catching 10 or 11 carp. But going back to, you know, what was my best memory, and it's a well-known, you know, sort of angling feat, if you like. Literally, I've still got it on telly in my house. There's like 30 seconds to go. It's apparent that England are going to win. What a feeling. You know, and I've dropped my rig in again, and they do a countdown. You know, like, I think it's from like 30 seconds. And I'm sat there, and Mark Downs behind me said, you've got about less than a minute. And I'm like, all right, it's gone. Whoosh, I'm like, bonk. And it's gone, woof, 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 just waddled off. And he said, you got like 30 seconds. So I've just literally shipped the pole in, grey hydro, 020, I think it was match winner back then, direct, size 12 or 14, it would have been a size 12 gamma power, KC rock float, all the gear, you know, like brilliant. And I literally just went zzz, 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 and I started pulling this fish, and it was one of those that just sort of didn't come to the surface, but just below the surface, and it was just like, whoa. And I'm thinking, I'm going to get this. I'm going to... And Mark's like, you got 20 seconds. I'm like, zzz, 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 and there's about this much elastic out now. And this guy... And I literally just lifted up and netted it. I was like, I don't know who was more shocked, me, the crowd, or the carp. I really don't know. But when I watch it back, it was one of those, did I actually do that? But, you know, an absolutely fantastic, you know, experience to be that far behind and to pull it back. I ended up winning the match individually. Alan chipped in with a brilliant 18 or 19 kilos, I think, from an area where, you know, no one really caught. Like, they caught a few more to his left, but the guy to his right, as I remember, was virtually last in the match. And obviously, more importantly than anything individually, England as a team and as a squad, and me and Alan as a pair, went on to win the event. We actually won by 11 kilos in the end, and when you bear in mind under 2 hours to go, we were 20 kilos behind. It just goes to show how match fishing can turn on its head. And, you know, like, that's one of the reasons why, you know, it's very, very rare you see me halfway through a match thinking, well, that's it, you know, like, I can't do any good. But a fantastic result for the team. Obviously, we got the money. I actually won the biggest fish as well, which I managed to win 3 times. Got the trophies again, I think they're over in my dad's house. Fantastic result. And, you know, the sort of achievement as well for me to get that fish live on camera, to get it in like, I think it was 20 odd seconds. You know, fantastic achievement to me. For me personally, it's one of the ones that I look back on and think, wow, you know, but all credit to the management, you know, Des and Cal that were there running. Obviously the two marks of management, but Alan as well and myself, you know, it's just a fantastic sort of effort. And I can remember, and it's one of the things that really sticks with me, is I remember looking round as the final whistle went, as I netted that fish, lifted it out of the water, and I looked round and Jamie Mason was looking at me. And I love Jamie. I think he's an awesome angler. Real nice guy. But he was looking at me with a look of like complete shell shock on his face, as if to say, what have you two done to us? You know, we were going to win this. But, you know, all credit to all the other nations that came. A lot of them did fantastically well. A brilliant event. And it's just such a shame that, you know, it's gone by the by, and another one of the big televised events that I absolutely thrived on's gone. But, like I say, every story, every good thing, you know, every good story and precious memory has a little bit of a funny story or a bad story to go with it. And I just want to finish on what happened to me the following year. Exactly the same. You know, I was paired with Des this year. Alan had been replaced by Des. And again, it's carbon copy. And whereas the year before, 30 seconds to go, dropped it in, float's gone under, I've gone whack. And it's like, and it's one of those, hang on a minute, this isn't doing much. Ship back quick, zzz, 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 net it. Right. And I'm like, yeah, you know, like I get carping in 20 seconds. That's what I do. You know, like it's not a problem to me. The following year, unbelievable. 40 seconds to go. I'm in the edge. It's just gone. I'm like that. Whack. And it's gone. I thought, yes, watch this. And I've literally thrown it back. And again, Mark Downs is behind me saying, you've got 30 seconds. And I'm like pulling like that. And it's like... And this one is a different fish. It's going that way no matter what. It wasn't a big lazy one that was just wallowing in. And I can remember thinking, this isn't in the script. You're meant to just come in and pop up and make me look good. And it's literally gone, snap, like that. And I've come back, no hook, nothing. And I've just put the top kit down and waited for the match to finish, which was about 10 seconds. So it doesn't always go to plan. But luckily we managed to win that year as well, me and Des. So I hope you've enjoyed this match memories. I've been out fishing a lot myself. Like I say, a little bit of roach fishing on the canal. Been out today doing a bit of filming with Darwa. And a couple of days ago with match fishing. So I'm fishing all the time, absolutely loving it. Again, I'd just like to finish this one by saying thank you all for your kind comments. I hope you're all catching fish and enjoying yourself and making the most of this warm, windy weather, which is absolutely perfect for fishing. Loads of fish everywhere I'm going in the wind at the moment. If you're going out for a pleasure day, definitely try and get in that southwesterly wind because there's loads of fish in the margins. But until next time, take care of yourself and tight lines. Bye-bye.